to how I became familiar with you. You know, I became conscious of who you were. It was literally like about a year ago. It was last August, and I follow Mo. Is it Jassam with ADCC? Jassam?
Yes, I think that's how you say his last name.
Yeah, yes, with Mo, and he was sharing on social media. He was being, and obviously he's someone that's very, you know, very influential in BJJ and in this sphere, right, in our world. And he was very vocal advocating for you and your story. And he was sharing an article that was published in Jiu-Jitsu Times, which I can link here for everybody to reference for themselves. But it just introduced me to you and your story, unfortunately, in like not the greatest of circumstances, you know.
Yeah.
It's not how I would have liked to have met you, or I've learned about your story, but you're so important. I'm like so grateful you shared it. You're so brave. You and I share, and I'm going to shut up very soon, I promise.
No, you're fine. I like this.
But you and I share so many similarities in so many ways.
Yeah, we do.
Just from our past and having been touched by certain things, and this being one of them. And also, in that reason alone, I've rooted for you. You know, I've really been invested in your, not just competitive success, your life success, you know, and anyway, you know, so, you know, with that, I want to give you the space to, and to share your story as you feel comfortable. And I kind of want to yield to you, but do you mind sharing a little bit about, I guess, you know, your experience with your coach and yeah, thanks.
yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for saying all the things too, but
yeah, you're amazing, Mandy. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So are you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was kind of crazy because like I said previously, I got my blue belt on my 16th birthday from my coach. His name was Rodrigo, and he was came from the Fight Sports gym, but I don't live in Miami. I don't live in Florida. I've never been to the Fight Sports gym. He just came from there. So everyone always asks me about that. I'm like, I've never been to that gym. I don't know.
It's interesting because the other coaches that got involved in this thing really, it revealed and not to interrupt you, but there was a systemic issue. There was a big issue with this guy coaching. He shouldn't have been now. And
exactly, yeah. It's like, but I know great people from that gym too, and
of course,
but, it is what it is, you know.
That's
but anyway,
so fair. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's like I know great people from that gym still too. But you know, it is what it is sometimes. But anyways, I was 16. I know him since I was 15, since I was a green belt actually. And at that time they were transitioning between another coach from Fight Sports who had to leave. And so he was taking his place. And so we had known each other for a while. And once I got my blue belt, there's another gym that's my team now called Soulfighters, and we would always drive there because I couldn't drive yet. And so he would always pick me up to go and train.
Right.
And, you know, it sounds normal. It's like if I was a male student, people wouldn't think it was weird. So when my
not at all.
Okay, no. It's not weird. And
so much of your story, it sounds like grooming. Like there was predator and prey. Like it's so unfair. Yeah. Like, sorry. Yeah.
No, it is. It's so weird because it's like I would just look back now and I was like, oh my God, I did not recognize it. And so many other people didn't recognize it. But it's grooming, and it's a thing that people aren't aware of quite yet sometimes.
Right.
But you know, so it's like we had a close relationship, and it was nothing like out of the ordinary. It was just like a coach and student, you know. He acted like that with a lot of other students, and you know, so it was kind of like, to me, nothing out of the ordinary. But like my first fight at blue belt wasn't until that super fight that I went to in Houston. And so that was my first time competing with my blue belt at all. Like I'd never competed. I hadn't competed in a while. So I was already very nervous, and it was like a good opportunity. And I just remember like the first thing when I showed him like, hey, like they want me to have this fight in Houston. I just remember the first thing him saying was like, okay, I'll drive you. And I was just kind of like, oh.
You shouldn't laugh.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's kind of like, that's the first thing that comes to your mind, bro.
But you're a kid, and to you, you're like, yes, I got to ride. Yes, I got to coach. Like, it's a wonderful cause, big opportunity. Like, you're so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and to me at the point, I was like, I don't care who takes me. I just want my coach there. And of course, like, things fell apart like last minute. Like, it's like my dad was supposed to be there. And I invited a bunch of people from my gym, and it was like literally like everything just like fell apart. And so everything just kind of like fell into his game, because there was like things behind the scene that like, you know, I thought he was gonna bring like his wife. I thought like all this stuff, and then it was like last minute things just kind of like, oh, it's just you and him, but you know, separate rooms. And I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. I just want to go compete and then come home.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and so that was like the night that everything happened. You know, he did like, that was the night like before my fight, like everything was normal. I did my weigh-ins, we ate, and then went home. Not home to the hotel, you know, it's like, and that's when it happened, like the assault and stuff like that. And, you know, that part, like in the jiu-jitsu times, I shared all the same information. But you know, I never shared like the actual details of like what happened and something like that. I don't think that stuff's important. I just think it's important for people to know, like, it happened. It's still very hard for me to say, like,
no, of course,
like, you know, like,
be explicit. No.
Yeah, no, I'm never gonna be explicit with things, but I always just want to, like, it's just a touchy subject. Even like I have a hard time saying that I was like raped by somebody, and like, so I always say like I was sexually abused by somebody, because in the state of Texas at 16, any like kind of assault is like sexual abuse to it. So I just use a legal definition. It's easier. Yeah. But I mean,
one thing, not to interrupt you, but I really think was that you touched on in that article that I did. There were two things I didn't consider about your story that I think it's so brave of you just to share any of it, but you really were very transparent and open about how you struggled internally with exactly with what you're talking about, with like, was this consent? Was I wrong? Did I do something? You were blaming yourself. You were going, you know, am I at fault here? And it's so important for you to share. I hate that you struggled with that. Like, it pains me. It hurt me because I identified, but it pained me. But for anybody else who's been through that, that's what keeps people quiet. Like, that's the thing. So you addressed that. And I was like, oh my God, hero. So important. So important to judge, because that's the elephant. That's the element. Like, that's why people feel shame or whatever. And it's, they're victims. You're not wrong. Yeah. In your story in particular, you were a minor. You were a minor. This is a coach. This is a grown up, a mentor. But he also had alcohol, and he got you intoxicated. Yeah. Like, you were not in any way in the wrong. You were a victim, but like, you were at a severe disadvantage. You know, you were out of your elements. You were far from home by yourself, nervous about a fight. Like, he was the only person you had to lean on. Like, I don't know. You were very much taken advantage of. Anyway.
It took me a while to realize that too. You're right. I think it was just, you know, the biggest part was it that I told myself too. I think I mentioned in the article too. It's just like, when something like that happens to you, at least for me, because I still knew like, okay, well, I have to go and fight tomorrow. So in like my mind, it's like, if I just deny like things alone, then it'll be fine, you know. So I just like just denying everything, like nothing, like I'm fine. Like it was easy for me to blame myself.
You were on people, but you had to. It's survival mode. You had to go into denial just because you had a huge, formidable task at your hand. You know, like jiu-jitsu is scary enough. Someone can heel hook you and blow your knee or worse. Like, it's scary enough. You know, you got to make weight, these things. But also you detailed it in the article. Mandy, you're a hero. You had to ride home with this monster. You were trapped for 4 or more hours. So like, wherever you had to go mentally to protect yourself is okay. Forgive yourself. Yeah. You were trapped. Like,
and that's the thing too. It's like, I want to get across to other people too. It's like, you know, I remember when I first shared, people said a bunch of things like, oh, you should, like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And that's why I tell people now, it's like, listen, like, when you're in that kind of situation, like, this goes for any woman, man who's been in that kind of situation. It's like, your brain's you're just gonna go into survival mode, like you said. Like, you're gonna do anything you can to survive. Like, there's things like, of course I wish I should have done, but in my mind it was just kind of like a get through it, you know. It is what it is. And you still aren't like fully aware of what happened. Like, it was so strange too, because I try to talk about it more. It's like, my mind was not fully aware of what happened. Like, my mind was like not there, but like my body knew. I just remember because we had to check out of the hotel before like my fight, so we didn't have anywhere to go. So we went and walked around like this park or museum or something like that before the fight. And I just remember anytime I get close to, like, I physically like felt sick, like for like, like my body physically would like tremble. And I remember like if I turned around and he wasn't there, I'd freak out and I'd think like he abandoned me and that he's gonna go and just like he left me here or something, or like, I was just freaking out because I'm just like, I
understand all of it.
It was a difficult time, but that's the biggest thing is like that people don't understand is like when something like that happens to you, most of the times you just don't know what to do. And you're also just, there's a lot of fear installed because it's like who's gonna believe,
all of your security is just altered. It's shattered. Like you're basically like, what you thought you knew is now different, and it's very insecure. You just feel, and even that false attachment in that moment with this person that just took total advantage of you, and or I know or whatever, you have these unsure feelings. You're on an island. You're by yourself in the city you've never been. Like, you're totally like, you had no one else. And again, you're survival mode. And it's just, to me, all of this is understandable to people who've been through trauma or trauma informed. Absolutely understand how you may have to dissociate. It's a survival mechanism. And there's no fault in that, that this is something, and you